Welcome to History's Darkest Questions. Today's video is the use of solitary confinement and punishment in gulags. Imagine a world where a simple political dissent could land you in an ice-cold cell, alone for years. Solitary confinement in the Soviet gulags was not just a form of punishment, it was often a slow death sentence. Individuals, ripped from their families, were placed in brutal isolation, away from light, warmth, and human connection. This was reality for countless prisoners in the Soviet Union, where gulags served as harsh instruments of control and oppression, masking unspeakable horrors behind barbed wire and concrete walls. In the cold, desolate expanses of Siberia and other remote areas, gulags functioned as labor camps filled with prisoners perceived as threats to the Soviet regime. But political prisoners were not the only ones to suffer here. Ordinary citizens, foreign nationals, and even those loyal to the state were often swept up in purges, accused of fabricated crimes, and sent to these dreadful camps. Inside the barracks, prisoners faced malnutrition, constant surveillance, and forced labor. However, for those deemed particularly troublesome or defiant, an even darker punishment awaited: solitary confinement. Prisoners found themselves shuttled into solitary cells, small and stone cold, often measuring no more than a few feet in each dimension. There they were left entirely alone. The walls, dripping with condensation, seemed to close in, amplifying every minor discomfort into a torment. The lack of interaction and sensory deprivation were tools of psychological torture. Days bled into nights, seasons changed, but inside those four walls, time stood still, dragging prisoners into states of delirium and madness. Solitary confinement in gulags was designed to break the human spirit and subdue the will in ways few other punishments could. The methodology of isolation was as chilling as the cells themselves. Guards ensured that prisoners remained utterly cut off from the outside world. Letters, if permitted, were heavily censored or delayed. Visits were rare and meticulously monitored, transforming any glimmer of hope into a cruel reminder of their isolation. In some cases, prisoners were denied even the most basic human needs. Chronic hunger gnawed at their insides, and thirst parched their throats. The sole nourishment might be a thin broth, insufficient for survival, yet all they'd receive. To understand the psychological impact, one must consider testimonies of survivors. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a Nobel Prize-winning author and former Gulag prisoner, described the mental torment of solitary confinement in his seminal work, The Gulag Archipelago. He recounted how the mind, starved of stimuli, began to hallucinate, forming conversations with imagined characters and reliving painful memories. Thoughts would start as coherent, but slowly spiral into chaotic, unformed fragments. In this state, the distinction between reality and imagination blurred, tearing at the very fabric of individuality and sanity. The impact on physical health was equally devastating. Prolonged periods of inactivity led to muscle atrophy and skeletal issues. The damp, unsanitary conditions bred infections and respiratory illnesses. With minimal medical care available, even minor ailments could prove deadly. Vitamin deficiencies, particularly scurvy, left prisoners with swollen gums, joint pain, and lingering weakness. Many did not survive the combination of physical and psychological torment, their bodies yielding to the unrelenting harshness of the environment. These practices were not merely punitive, they were strategic, aimed at instilling fear and obedience among the populace. The message was clear: dissent would be met with the ultimate isolation, separation from society, from loved ones, and from sanity itself. Some prisoners, driven to the edges of human endurance, attempted to end their suffering through suicide. Others, broken beyond repair, lost the will to live, fading away within the confines of their cells. The psychological scars left by such treatment often lingered long after release, haunting survivors for the rest of their lives. The calculated cruelty extended beyond the confines of solitary cells. Routine beatings, public humiliations, and forced testimonies compounded the torment, creating an atmosphere where fear reigned supreme. Prisoners were often forced to betray friends and family, feeding the paranoia that sustained the regime's control. The use of solitary confinement was but one facet of a broader system designed to crush the human spirit and reinforce state dominance through sheer terror. Yet, amid this darkness, flickers of resistance did persist. Some prisoners found solace in small acts of defiance, secretly sharing scraps of food, smuggling notes, or silently protesting by enduring their suffering without breaking. Their courage, though often unnoticed and uncelebrated at the time, stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of profound oppression. In conclusion, the use of solitary confinement in Soviet gulags was more than just an instrument of punishment. It was a deliberate tool of psychological and physical destruction. Aimed at erasing individuality and breaking human will, it stands as one of history's starkest reminders of the extremes of human cruelty. Even today, the stories of Gulag survivors serve as a chilling testament to the depths of suffering endured and the strength it took to survive such unimaginable horrors.